Hi guys, in this video we're going to build a pretty useless tool. It's basically a search view or page that will search YouTube's database of videos based on certain filters. So we have two filters here. We will have a published before filter, so it'll search for all videos before a certain date, and also we can filter by keyword. So if we look in the documentation, I didn't mean to get sidetracked so quickly, but we can filter by keyword, so it will retrieve search results associated with the keyword surfing. How it does that, I'm not sure. That's something Google or YouTube developers determine, how it's linked. But we have the filter by keyword and then publish before, and then when we hit search, hopefully our project uses the YouTube API and returns data and puts it into our view here, as you'll see, as I will demonstrate here right now actually. So let me type in Viking. I actually didn't search for this term before. I want to search for some old videos, right? Published before January 1st, 2007. We hit search here. We see that we have three results here. Fat kid fall off bike. Funniest part, listen. I don't want to watch this because this might be me. Okay, and then we click on it, and then we can watch the video. I want to see what happens because I actually like biking. People getting hurt, so funny. Okay, that's what it does. And then on row click, our browser will open a new tab and basically pass in the ID of this video, and it'll open that video for us. We also have some statistics like how many views the video has, likes to dislikes, which we can then get a ratio, the number of comments, when it was posted, what channel posted it, description, and so on. So hopefully there will be something useful for you in this video, even though it's a kind of nonsensical project. But we will be working with an API. We'll be working with data formatting to display our API data in the table and some other cool, neat tricks. So let's just jump into it. All right, so let's get started. The first thing that you should know is to complete this project, you need to get an API key. So there's this section here. I'll include this in the description from YouTube, obtaining authorization credentials. It's at this URL here. Like I said, I'll include it in the description. And what you need is an API key, so you don't need to worry about the OAuth 2.0 and getting tokens, getting refresh tokens, all of that. You just need an API key, which you'll include in the URL of the request. It's very easy to work with. Just follow these steps here to generate that API key, and then once you have it, you can use it for your requests. But other than that, let's get started. So the first thing we're going to do is obviously create the layout, and then the second part is going to be to create the scripting. I'm going to create a new project. I'll call it APIs. Testing different APIs. Okay, and then accept the default settings and create new project. If you don't want to create a new project, just open your designer. This part is up to you, as should be obvious to you. Okay, so let's go ahead and create a new folder. We'll call it YouTube, since this is a YouTube API, and then a new view called search. Yeah. And let's create it as a flex container, and then for the URL, I'm just going to call it search. Create view. Okay, so here will be our view. Let's drag on components right away. We'll need a label. 2 rows, 2 flex rows. You can actually search for row, and then it'll have a flex container. And then inside of our rows, we'll add some content, and then we need a table. And this table will go at the bottom. Okay, so let's just start formatting our components here. We will call this advanced YouTube search. I'm going to add some style. So padding left 10. Let's do background color red. I think that's annoying. The tooltip color. Let's do white. There we go. Let's make it a little bit larger. Font size 25 pixels, something like that. And then this we can set here to the basis to 50 pixels. There we go. We have a nice big label. Okay. In our first row, let's set the basis to 50 pixels. This will be where we enter our filter text. So let's go, as you saw there in the beginning of the video. For that, we need a label and a text field. There we go. We'll set the text field to grow. To fill the rest of the space, we'll change this label text, filter, keyword. There we go. We'll set this label to also grow and set the basis to auto. Sorry. So turn grow off, set the basis to auto, and that will fill this up. Okay, on the top level flex container, let's just rename it that way it's easier to find. We'll call it flex keyword. Bottom one, we'll call it flex published before, since this will hold our date input, as you'll see here in a second. On the top level flex keyword, let's add some properties here. Value, we'll say margin 0, top and bottom, and then we can do 10% left and right. There we go. Same thing for our flex published before. So margin 0 and then 10%. There we go. And then the table. So this will be one of the last things we edit. Let's set it to grow, and then also we can set this here margin to 10 pixels, 10 pixels top and bottom, 10%. I actually forgot one more component, so this will be also 50 pixels. Let me select my root flex container and add a button. That's what I forgot. Add a button onto my view. And then this will be the actual search button where our request will happen. And then let's also add the margin. Margin 5 pixels top and bottom, 10%. And then we can call it search and background color. We can set this also to red. There we go. That doesn't look that bad. Let's add an icon. Path. This is pretty cool. So I only have material. Let's do search and this guy here. There we go. So that's the preliminary setup. Let's make it a little bit nicer. Let's add a padding or a margin right on the label. Margin right 5 pixels, so some space. This one we'll format here. On this text input, let's add margin Y of 5 pixels. Let's see how that looks like. Well, I guess let's do this. Margin, top and bottom, we can say 5 pixels and then 0. Let's try 10 pixels. We'll see how that looks with our line height. Okay, let's go to this component here. Let's add one label, and then let's add our date time input. So let me actually do it this way. That way I can see. Date time input. So we want to do date and time. We don't actually need the time, but we'll just add it anyway. Okay, this label, let's rename it published before, since that will be a filter that we'll use, and set this basis to auto. Let's set this to grow to fill the rest of the space there, and then let's set the margin top and bottom to 10 pixels and then 0. Oh yeah, and then on this label, let's set margin right to 5 pixels. I don't like that when you hover over it, it covers. Anyway, here's our layout. Let me save this and I'll show you what it looks like in a session here. So let me launch this URL. And here's what it looks like. Obviously, this table data will change here shortly in the second section of this video. But we have our basic UI layout that we'll use to filter our keywords and then get a date from the user and then search, and then it'll update this table. All right, so now for the second part of this tutorial, we're going to actually add the scripting that will do the lookup. So it'll send an HTTP request, retrieve data, and then populate this table with data from the HTTP request or the API retrieval. Okay, so let's go back to our designer, but before we do that, let's take a look at the requests in Postman. If you don't know what Postman is, it's an API testing tool. Yeah, so I added my URL here. If you want to get started, just open a new tab, make sure it's set to the HTTP GET method here, and then post in your URL. I'll include these URLs in the forum post. So I'll include them in a few places in the description of this video. I'll also include them in the GitHub repository file with the URL, and then you'll just have to add your own API key. As you can see here, that's a variable, an environment variable, and that maps to a variable here that I added. So it's an actual API key variable. Okay, so here's what the request will look like. Published before is the field. That's the field that has the date input. Type video will not change. Q is our keyword here. So those are the things we will be entering. So for example, if the keyword is zoo, I hit send, I'll have a list of items with their IDs, and then this ID references an ID of a video on YouTube that you can then find by appending this to a certain URL, which we'll cover here shortly. Okay, this is the first endpoint we'll be using. It returns a list of search results. The second endpoint returns actual information about each video in that list. So for example, we have a video ID, this one here. Let me copy this. go to the second request, and then paste the ID in here that we want to search for, and hit send. And then we have we have the actual video statistics and information here. So when it was published, channel, the title, description, and then there will be statistics here. So tags, and then there will be views, likes, duration, 4 minutes, 7 seconds, stuff like that. So what we're going to be doing is sending a request to this first endpoint, getting a list of 25 items. That's just a number I decided on because usually the perspective table page size is 25, so that's just what I was going for. And I'm assuming the best results, search results, will be returned first. This is not a very important project, as you can tell, but that's just the assumption I'm going to make. And then afterwards, we're going to make the second request for every item in the first list. So in the list of video IDs here, we will make a second request. So we're going to have 26 requests total. So we'll have the length of our list. We can obviously set it to whatever we want, n, and then n+1. So this first request here will return the list of videos. So that's a bunch of mumbo jumbo. Let's jump in and start actually writing the script. So let me go to the button here. Let's add an event on action performed, script. Okay, let me actually, somebody suggested I make the script text larger. There we go, that should be good enough. Okay, so first thing we're gonna have to do is let's get the values of our variables. So of the date input and also of the keyword. So text field props text will be keywords or keyword. And then let's also do published before is equal to our date input, date time input. So that'll be this props value. And then to get started, let's just system.perspective.print keyword. And then let's print published before. Okay, so let's save this. All it's going to do is return. So did I save? All it's going to do is return the values we entered into the form. Okay, so filter keyword, we can enter surfing, published before. Let's choose a date here, June 18th, and then hit the search button. And then if we open the console, we can see that it has a time here and our value that we entered. Okay, easy enough. Okay, let's go back to our script here. Oh, that's going to be annoying. It reverts to the smaller size, so I'll have to do this every time. Okay, so what we want to do is use system.net.http get, or actually let's use httpClient. I forgot what the actual function is called. Let me bring this up here on the side. System.net. Okay, here it is. httpClient. There we go. So we're going to use this function here to create a client and then get a response. So let's just copy this code snippet. We're going to modify it, but we can start out with this code snippet and then modify it to our use case. Okay, so we create a client and then we send a request here with a URL. This URL will come from this Postman URL here. So the first one, let's copy this and paste it in here. And then we're going to get this URL, and we actually don't have params. We could do it using the params object, but we're just going to put it directly into the URL. So instead of key, API key, we could just do params, an object like API key, and then the key. So this, if we remove this here, we could do it this way, but we'll just leave it in the URL. Doesn't matter in our case. Okay, so I created a script, sort of like a gateway script, except I don't actually define a function. I just defined a variable. It's called shared.env.youtube API key, because I don't want you guys to see it. That way you don't go over my quota, just use my key. That way you create your own. It's honestly very easy to do. And then here, the query, we will append. So let's append here. What are we appending? Well, we're going to append keyword. Keyword. This will be surfing or zoo or whatever. And then our date here, published before as a date, we're going to insert it here. So we don't really care for the time. The time doesn't really matter to us in this case, but let me add this here, and then we can look in the documentation. Okay, let me just apply this real quick. Let's look in the documentation, like I said. We're going to need to format, so system.date. There's a function called system.date.format where we pass in our date and then we pass in the format we want it in. Okay, so let's try this code snippet here. Let's go back to the event. That's very annoying. It's going to be different size every time because I don't know how much I'm scrolling. Okay, let's add the system date format, and instead of today, it'll be published before. And then we just want the year, the month, and the day. Right? So let's look at our request here. We have the year, month, and the day. Okay. So I'm not sure if this will work. It should. But let's go ahead and print this out beforehand. Right here, system.perspective.print this here. Okay, if it prints successfully, then our URL is ready, and we can go on and create the response. So this we can comment out for now, that way we don't waste our request. Okay, there we go. Let's enter something. Bike, published before 2016. Let's do June 24th, and then hit search, and then we should get our date format here. Perfect. That's exactly what we wanted. Okay. Also, let me check the documentation here. It should return a string. Okay, good. It returns a string, so we don't need to do any casting. Okay, so I believe our URL is ready. Let me zoom in here. Let me also make it multi-line, that way it's easier to see. There we go. And I'll just add. There we go. Okay, so let me uncomment this. Oops, uncomment this. I'll call this res for response. Okay, we'll get the response. whatever the client sends back at this URL. If res.good, so basically if there's a status code of 200, we're going to print response.json. So let's change this up here. Let's print perspective.print. I have a hotkey on my work computer for system.perspective.print, and I keep forgetting to map it on my home computer. But I'll get around to it one of these days. Okay, let's print res.json. Okay, let's save this. Go into our session. Let's refresh here, and then bike. Enter before. Let me do before 2013. Select this date. Hit search. And let's see if anything happens. I don't think anything happened there. Okay. Let's run it actually in the designer, because if something goes wrong, we'll get, oh, okay. Shared is not defined. Okay, I probably just forgot the URL. Oh, never mind. So it was in my other project when I did this before. I'm just stupid. So let me add this really quick. And then I'll modify this here. Okay. Should be shared dot. Okay. Let's save and see if that changes anything. So let's enter bike. Enter a date. 2017, 15, search. And we have our response. Perfect. This is what we want to see. Okay, let's continue. We're clipping right along. Alrighty. So what do we want to do if the response is successful? Well, let's actually define a variable here. Let's define videos ls is equal to just an empty list. And then we'll add our videos, well, just the IDs to this list, and then we'll go through the list ID by ID and run the second query. All right, so let's get started here. So what do we want? If we look in Postman, it's easier to visualize. On the first request, we have an items object, which is a list in itself, and then we want to set each of these. So items, and then ID, and then video ID is what we want. So items, ID, video ID, we want to add to our list that we just created. All right, let's go. So this we can comment out. And then we say for item and res.json.items, right? Because it's in the top level. So if you look here, this is res.json, is this outer, and then we have an items object here, or a key. So, and then it's going to loop over this list here. So we want to get item dot ID dot video ID. So we want to do videos ls dot append item dot ID dot video ID. That should work. And then at the end, let's system.perspective dot print video ls. All right, we'll print our list of videos. And let's save this and run it just to make sure. All right, I'm going to have to clear that field. If we look, okay, something's going wrong. Let's try it in our designer. So 10, click this, built-in function, built-in, okay, line 19. Line 19 for item in res.json. Maybe if we try this notation here, I still don't understand why I can use one once and then it doesn't work for the other. It should be the same notation, the bracket notation, and also the dot notation. Sometimes it doesn't work, and I don't understand why. Okay, let's just change that there. Sorry for you blind folks. I used the bracket notation here, and let's try this again. So video ls is not defined. Videos ls, video ls. Okay, I think so this time it should work. Delete. Let me just clear this field here. Value. All right, let me save and then go back to my session. Refresh this and bike. And then let's choose a date and hit search. And nothing happened. All right, we'll troubleshoot this here in a second. All right, hopefully I'm smarter after dinner. Let's see if we can figure this out. So let's run it in the designer. That way pizza, that's what I just had. That way we can see what error is popping up. Video ls is not defined. Come on. What did I call it? Videos ls dot append. What is going on? All right, let's try this again. Boom. Bada bing. Let's check the console. Bada bow. Alrighty, there we go. We can see we have 5 videos here. There's actually a URL. There's a component here in the URL. If there isn't, it's something we can add. Okay, so search list. You can see different examples. You can even get code examples here, but I want to filter for a certain type or max results. There we go. Max results. Let's just add this key to our URL here, plus, and max results is equal to 25. There we go. This we can, let's leave this out here. So here it is, I zoomed in, and max results is equal to 25. To be honest, we don't even need this videos ls list. I forgot. We will need a list, an empty list. Let's just call it, well, we can keep it videos ls, but we won't need to append. We can just do our second request right from within this loop. So let's remove this. Sorry guys, I forgot. Let's define another client. So let's define a client called video info is equal to system.net.http get, or let's use, you can use http get, but I'll use httpClient once again. Here the URL will be something different, and then we can say res is equal to client.get and then URL. Oh, not client, sorry, video info.get URL. This URL will be the second URL, which will also be included. So let's copy this. It'll also be included in the description and in the Git repository. And let's just modify this URL as well. I think the only thing we need to modify here is to put in our API key. So let's add plus shared.YouTube API key. You can put it straight in here. Once you get your API key, you can do something like this, or you can put it in a tag and get the tag value. It doesn't really matter. Okay, so we'll get the response, video.get, and then, so if res.good, so let's actually call this video res, not to confuse with the above res, video res.good. We will take oh, never mind. We have another thing. No wonder. Okay. This we will remove and add each ID. I thought I was tripping there. Okay, so it'll be item, and then we'll put in ID, and then if you remember, it'll be video ID, like that. And then we can say, put this on a new line, that way you can see it all in one line. There we go. Let's get our response. If the response is successful, let's append videos ls dot append. Videos ls is a list here that we defined. We'll append to it an object that we will create here shortly. There's actually multiple fields, but for now, let's actually just print system perspective.print, and we will print this here. Let's comment this out for now. System print video res.json. So this will print, let's just print 5 results. That way it doesn't bog down our system. And also there's a quota on the API. I don't want to use up my quota, whatever was allocated to me. So let me hit search. And I should get, there we go. We were getting objects that you can see here in Postman, which is formatted prettier. You have the indentation and whatnot, color coordination from the keys and the values. So what we want, here are the fields that I want. So in my table, I want there to be a published at column, a title, a description column, published at, title, description. I want there to be title, description. I want there to be a channel title. This is the channel that posted the video, and then some statistics like view count, like count, and so on. So let's just get started and extract the information we need. So videores.json is this outer object here. So .items, or bracket notation items, will retrieve the list for us. And then we need to go 0. So the first, there's only one item in this list. If we look here, there's just one item. So we'll go videoRes.json bracket notation items 0, and it will return this entire outer level object. So let me do that. Let's do that real quick. Okay, videoRes.json items 0. It'll return the entire outer level object, and let's just try a field. Let's do item 0 snippet title. Let's try snippet title just to see if we got the formatting down. Snippet title. If this returns the title, then we'll go ahead and form our object and then append it to our list. So let's go ahead and play. Let me open the console and clear it, and then hit search. There we go. So it's printing our title, the titles of the videos. Okay, so we figured out the format of our object. So let's create our object here. So let me comment this out here. Object is equal to, so we'll have a title field. Title will equal this. Let me actually set we'll go and never mind. I was going to set this to a variable. N is equal to this here. That won't change. That way we can say title is N snippet. Sorry, I forgot to zoom in. N snippet and then title. All right, we want the description. What else did we want? So if you look at snippet here, I should zoom this in as well. Oh, I can't. So snippet title, we want published at and description and channel title. So title, we have description, published at, and channel title. So if we say description, published at, channel title, and then we also want, this is all under snippet, and then we also want statistics. So instead of snippet, we'll have statistics, and then we'll have view count, like count, and dislike count. All right, and then we'll have view count, like count, dislike count, and whoops, forgot I had a comma, and comment count. Whether we will display this in our table or not, it'll be up to us here, as you'll see. So let me paste this in for these two. This will change. So this will be statistics. And this will be view count. Copy. There we go. View count. Let me just change these around. Like count. This is dislike count, and this should be comment count. This here will be description. This will be published at. This will be channel title. Alrighty. So if you are a good programmer, you would obviously put this in some sort of check, like a try except. But I'm just going to append it to my list here. There we go. Video ls.append object. And then after my loop, we want to take our entire list and set our table data. So let's go to table props data will equal videos ls. There we go. We'll see how much of this works. So let's first run it here. Pizza 2012. Let me clear that and let's hit search. Oh, sweet. We have our data in our table. So the last thing we need to do, well, there are a few more things, but we're going to format this table so that we see the columns we want to see. Also change these headers. And then if you noticed, if you click here, we can't see 2005. We're going to set the min date on this date time input here. And then the last thing we're going to do is when you click on a row, we're going to actually open a new tab and paste in the video. So you can click on this one and then it'll actually open a new tab in your browser, in your session, and open the video for you so you can watch it. Okay, so let's do that one at a time. Let's go back here. Let me just change this max results to 25. Okay, that's pretty much it for the scripting. So here you can pause and copy the code. I'll also have it as a code snippet from line 2 to 20. Here's what it looks like. And then also from 20 here to the end. That's all I have for the code. Pretty short. Obviously you build in your own error checks. Okay, so I changed that. Let's modify the column objects here. Let me check something else really quick. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We have 8 items here. Let me create 8 column objects. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. All right. And then we can rearrange them however we want. So the field specifies which column it actually refers to. So which one do we want first? We want let's do title. There you see it changed position. And then if you want to change the header, you just go here and we can say title here. And then the header changed. And then I think we want description. So let me just type in description here. And then in the header, I'm going to type in DSC. And then we want channel title. Channel title, we'll call it channel. Let's do published at next. Let's render it as a date. There we go. You can see that it's nice. And then we can just call it posted, whatever. Let's do view count. It's very annoying that the popover or tooltip or whatever it's called pops up. Views. Let's call this like count. Oh, like count. Oops. Header. Call it likes. Dislike count. We call it here dislikes. Oh, dislikes. And then last one here, we'll call it comment count is the last field. And then here we'll do like num comments or something. There we go. And then we can see our table. Just call it that. There we go. These are statistics here, and then you can drag and rearrange these columns however you wish. Okay, sweet. I actually forgot one important detail here. We also want to append to our object, we want to append the ID. So let's call it video ID. And this will just be this here, comma. So be sure to add this video ID because we're going to use it now. I should have not forgotten about it, but here it is. We added it to our object. Let's go back to our table, add another column, and then this we can call video ID, and we can make it invisible, but just make it there so it doesn't matter what we put for the header. Okay, that's important because the next thing we're going to do is we're going to configure an event on the table. So I have my table deep selected here, and I'm going to configure an event on row click. So this will be kind of annoying. If you just want to look through the table, it's going to open a new tab every time. But let's add a script here as well. So our video ID will be, so our ID will be event. I'll just use this notation here, value, video ID. How do I know that? Well, because event.value will return the row's value, and then part of the row is this video ID here. And then we're going to use system.perspective.navigate, and then URL, and then our URL, and then new tab. There's a new tab is equal to 1, I believe. There's a parameter here, so let me open the documentation. System perspective.navigate. There we go. The URL we want to navigate to, and there's the new tab, and new tab if true. Okay, so let's set it to true instead of 1. New tab is true. What's the URL? Well, it's just https www.youtube.com/watch v is equal to our ID. There we go. Let's hit OK. Sorry, let me open that up again and zoom in. Your pause on this if you want to copy it. So this is the URL. We can take any ID and prepend this to that ID, and we can see what that video is. Okay, let me hit OK here and save. Let me actually clear these fields for our session. There we go. Let me clear this formatted field. I wish there was a way to clear these easily. So what I find is the easiest is I just delete the property. So like here as well, I don't want this data to be here. Well, it's actually different. I can delete these, but if there are a lot of rows, I would just delete this data object and add it again. It'll be clear. There we go. Let's save. Let's go back to our session here. Okay, hopefully this works. So what do we want to search for? Well, if you know anything about YouTube, the first video that was posted is called Me at the Zoo. So let's search for zoo. Oh, I remembered the last thing we needed to do. We won't be able to search for the video I have in mind because it was posted in 2005, and as you can see, the minimum date here is 2011. So let's change that. That should be very easy. Let me Google. So the min date on the date time input takes milliseconds as an input. So if you go min date here, this actually takes milliseconds. How do I know? I looked that up in the documentation. So let me just go online and I'll find 2 millis calculator. I just Googled 2 milliseconds, and then what do I want to convert? Well, I want the year to be 2005, the month to be 0101. That's the minimum date here. I want to take this, copy it, put it in my min date here, and save. Let me save this, and then if I select here, I have 2005. Okay, sweet. Let's go back here, refresh, and test this out. So let's go zoo, call it zoo, published before. So we want it to be published in 2005, so published before 2006, and we can choose January 1st, 2006, and hit search, and we get these items. And here's that video, me at the zoo. This is the video I was referring to. If you click on the row, it opens a new tab. Sorry, that's embarrassing. I know how to fix this though. So it's opening a new page. We just need to set this to URL. There we go. Let's go back here, refresh. Okay, zoo once again. Let's go to 2006, January 1st, search. Here's that video, me at the zoo. When we click on it, it'll open, and here is that video. First video that was ever posted on YouTube. Okay, that's about all I have for you guys. I think, sorry, I just touched my mic. I think the power or the usefulness of this video really comes down to, first of all, how to query an API. The YouTube API is very easy to work with, very easy to use. Second of all, I think another thing that can be useful is how to format the data you're receiving from the API and then use a table to display that data. I think that's a useful skill to have. And hopefully there are other useful components to this little project. If you have any questions, let me know in the comments or on Discord. I would be happy to try to help however I can. That's all I have for you guys today. Thank you for continuing to watch my videos, and I will see you in the next video.